Decriminalization of traffic violations in Nevada has created a backlog in the local court system. A law passed during the 2021 legislative session made most traffic citations civil infractions punishable by fines rather than criminal violations subject to warrants and possible jail time. Now, as a result, traffic violations are now civil cases, and if you want to fight a ticket, well, you must do so in court before a judge. And there is currently, get this, a 4-month wait to get a court date. Yikes. Well, there are, of course, changes to the process for fighting those traffic violations. So we want to know, how could it impact you as a driver here in Las Vegas? So joining us now to tackle those questions for us, attorney Matt Hoffmann with Battle-Born Injury Lawyers. And as always, we welcome you to the program. Questions that a lot of people have, because sometimes we have a lead foot, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, under the old way, it was a criminal infraction. And what was happening is that people couldn't pay their tickets, so you get a bench warrant. Then you get pulled over for something else, and now you're going to jail. And, you know, in America, we don't have debtors' prisons. You don't get to go to jail just because you owe money, so it became this kind of a, you know, quagmire. It's unfair that you have a certain segment of the population that are like literally going to prison just because they couldn't afford to pay a ticket was the idea. So let's make it civil, let's take away the criminal repercussions and, you know, take away that problem. Well, under the old method, it was all set up in the criminal court system. You have prosecutors, you have, you know, the court system itself, you have court clerks, you can negotiate it, you can enter a plea deal. And usually what would happen is people would say, okay, well, you know, you're facing a speeding ticket, I'll agree to illegal parking or a non-moving violation, I'll pay a higher fine. But by doing that, no points against your license.
Right.
And it was very common and very popular. But now it's in the civil court system. Now you're dealing with justice court, municipal court. There's no prosecutor. The clerk can't look at your information and make a deal. There's no deals to be made. And instead, you got to deal with a civil court, and it's a preponderance of the evidence standard versus, you know, beyond a reasonable doubt. So it's a much different system as it's set up now.
So is it better, or are there unintended consequences with that?
It's the unintended consequences of what we're dealing with right now. So civil, I practice in civil court. Civil system is really slow. It's really, really slow. Preponderance of the evidence means more likely than not, just a little bit more likely than not. It's a tough burden to be fighting against, especially on a civil infraction. So what's happened is it's gone into civil court. They're not prepared for it. And the system, what it does is it says, okay, let's say that you got a speeding ticket. It's $350. You now have 90 days. You have to pay the $350 in order to get a court date. And they'll hold that $350 as your bond. Or if you can submit a check for $350 that they'll hold, and they'll only cash it if you're found guilty, if you would lose at the hearing. Or you can pay the $350 and then you call and see if you qualify for traffic court. And if you do, then you can do traffic class. And then you can get the points, you know, reduced that way. Well, the reality is that, you know, a lot of people are calling and saying, okay, well, I'll pay the $350. And then it says, okay, well, you don't qualify for traffic school because you've got too many priors. Do you want a court hearing? It's 4 months from now. And people will think, well, I really don't want to go to court in 4 months. I don't want to get a lawyer. I'll just plead guilty. Not realizing now you're getting points off and your insurance rates are going to go up.
Oh, wow.
And then you have the other problem is that, you know, let's take that same group of people that couldn't pay their fines before and warrants were issued. Well, if they mess up this process, now you have a court. A civil court's going to say, okay, well, here's your fine, and there's administrative penalties, et cetera, and then they can't afford to pay it. Well, guess what? Now you're in contempt of court. That's still a criminal violation. Or you put a check on deposit, and then you lose at court, and they go to cash the check, and it doesn't cash because you didn't have enough money.
Now you've written a hot check.
Now exactly. Now you got a criminal violation.
Right.
So they've got a lot of things to work out, and it's such an arduous process. I think you're just going to see a lot more people just pleading guilty to simple traffic offenses rather than go through the process. They're going to see their insurance rates go up. And the last thing we want is people saying, well, I can't afford my insurance.
Right. Yeah.
And now you're on the road and nobody's got insurance or you know, what have you, or people are paying tons more money for insurance rates. So the system is now a civil system, which is slower, it's complicated, and it's causing this huge backlog that we're seeing.
Yeah, would you just advise people to go ahead and deal with the backlog, because at least you're fighting for a chance not to mess up your insurance down the line?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
still wise. There are still reasonably priced attorneys that deal with these items. They can at least get you a court date. And that's the other thing, civil court, the Constitution guarantees the right to a jury trial for criminal cases, not for civil. And so you don't have a right to a jury trial in these. It's up to the whims of the judge.
Oh, wow.
And really, what are you arguing if it's a speeding ticket? You don't have a right to call witnesses. It's
Yeah,
the whole
maybe-
process is just a little bit.
I was just thinking, maybe we all need to just take our foot off the gas.
If that's what
Try to avoid the system altogether.
if that's what the point of the program was,
Yeah.
then it's going to work, because I don't want to
Slow
deal
down,
with it.
people.
Yeah, slow down.